Hey everyone, Erick Stakelbeck here. Welcome to the Watchman Newscast. It's hard to believe, but the year is winding down. As you can see, we are in the Christmas spirit here on the Watchman. But there's one man in Tehran who's kind of the supreme Grinch. He's actually the supreme leader of the Iranian regime. His name is Ayatollah Khamenei, and his forces right now are on the march across the Middle East with deadly intentions to confront Israel and the United States. We're going to get into it today. The subject of today's newscast is Iran and Israel on a collision course. Before I do that, I just want to encourage you to subscribe to the Watchman News channel right here on YouTube. Folks, our numbers are growing by leaps and bounds, and it's all because of you. Thank you, number one. Number two, subscribe, give us a big thumbs up, like what we are doing here, and tell your friends, your family members, your coworkers around the Christmas or the Hanukkah dinner table this season to subscribe to the Watchman Newscast. We're bringing you the kind of relevant, timely, cutting-edge information that you just won't hear anywhere else, certainly not in the mainstream media. Okay, Israel, Iran, collision course. Let's start with two very newsworthy items breaking as I come to you here on the newscast. Number one, the Iranian regime is reportedly smuggling missiles next door into Iraq. Missiles, short-range missiles with enough range to reach Jerusalem, to reach Israel, and they're stockpiling their missile arsenal there in Iraq, without a doubt, not only to threaten and target U.S. targets in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, obviously, and Israel, of course. So that's number one, Iran in Iraq. Number two, the U.S. Navy just intercepted a ship from Iran that was transferring missile parts, surprise, surprise, to Yemen. What does this all mean, folks? We know that Iran, through its proxy Hezbollah, has some 150,000 rockets and missiles in southern Lebanon at Israel's doorstep, pointed at every inch of the Jewish state. We know that Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas, those two deadly Iranian proxies in Gaza, also have a large rocket stockpile, again, much of it supplied by the Iranian regime. We know that Iran also has entrenched itself in Syria, once again, at Israel's northern doorstep, and they are building up their military and missile infrastructure there. Now we have Iraq and we have Yemen. It's pretty clear here, folks. Common sense, what the Iranian regime is doing is encircling Israel, which, by the way, just a quick reminder here, is the size of the state of New Jersey. The Iranian regime is encircling the Jewish state on all sides, even far to the south now, out of Yemen, with these ballistic missiles. And two guesses at what their intentions are to stockpile this massive missile arsenal on all sides surrounding Israel. Now, even the U.S. military recently said in a report that Iran has the largest ballistic missile stockpile in the Middle East. They have the short-range missiles like the ones they're planting in Iraq right now, which can travel some 600 miles. But key point here, folks, especially if you're sitting right now in Europe or the United States. If you're a citizen of the West, know this. The Iranian regime is also working on ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, and those missiles, folks, do exactly what their name says. They are designed to travel across continents. Now, those ICBMs, they're not meant for Saudi Arabia. They're not even meant for Israel. They are meant for the United States, the great Satan, and the ultimate prize in the Iranian regime's ideology. Their ideology, by the way, is what drives all of this. They truly believe in this apocalyptic, radical jihadist ideology, wiping Israel off the map, destroying the great Satan, the United States. Folks, this is not just bluster for domestic consumption by Iran's leaders. They believe it, and they are shaping policy around it right now, and that's why they are stockpiling this missile arsenal on every side of Israel. It's coming to a head. And right now we see protests, by the way, important point here, in Lebanon, in Iraq, in Iran. People, these proxy states of the Iranian regime, these proxy nations, and people within the Iranian nation are rising up. They are sick of this radical, tyrannical, violent regime that's exporting terror throughout the Middle East and beyond. Look, the Iranian regime right now, folks, effectively controls 4 Arab capitals: Sana'a in Yemen, Baghdad in Iraq, Damascus in Syria, Beirut in Lebanon. These are Iranian satellite states. And guess what? Some of the folks within these nations are getting fed up. So we see widespread street rioting and protests and demonstrations inside Lebanon, much of the anger directed towards Iran and its proxy Hezbollah, which is entrenched in southern Lebanon and in the suburbs around Beirut. We also see widespread riots, demonstrations in Iraq. Again, the Iraqi government in many ways is in the pocket of the Iranian regime, and the Iraqi people don't like it. And of course, we see inside Iran, the Iranian people once again rising up. Folks, we've seen this more and more over the past few years, really dating back some 20 years. There were major demonstrations in Iran as far back as 1999 against this regime. 2009, of course, we had 1 million Iranians in the streets during the Green Revolution. President Obama, of course, at the time said, and I quote, he didn't want to meddle. Folks, that was a tear down this wall moment. All he had to do was give verbal support, moral support as the leader of the free world to the Iranian people, and he took a pass. And now the Iranian regime, in some ways, is stronger than ever in that they're marching across the region. They have powerful friends, the likes of Vladimir Putin in Russia. They have powerful, well-armed proxies. But in other ways, the regime is teetering. Look, you have widespread protests inside Iran. The Iranian regime has cracked down brutally. Surprise, surprise. They've killed at least 200 people, civilians, so far in responding to these protests. But another key point here, folks, U.S. sanctions are biting. They're working, and the Iranian economy is in a very bad way. The real trigger for this latest round of protests by the Iranian people against the regime is that the Iranian regime raised the price of gas by 50%. That is a big deal. No wonder folks are furious, and they're doing that, and they're going to have to take more drastic economic measures because they are being hit and hit hard by U.S. sanctions. Thank God that President Trump applied the pressure there, laid down heavy sanctions, and continues to squeeze the Iranian regime. But here's to the point and to the crux of our newscast today: Israel-Iran on a collision course. The Iranian regime has its back against the wall right now, folks. Look, their people are rising up. They're frustrated. And the hungrier and more economically frustrated the Iranian people get, the more they're going to rise up. So Iran has its back against the wall in that sense, increased pressure by the U.S. And how do they respond? They lash out. And U.S. officials said recently, one U.S. official said, a military official said, he expects that Iran will continue to lash out and kind of increase and up the ante, so to speak, in their attacks against the West, against the Saudis, against Israel. So their back's against the wall. They're going to lash out. We've seen time and time again over the past 6 months, right? We've talked about it here in the Watchman Newscast. Look, Iran has targeted shipping in the Persian Gulf, targeted ships there, shot down a U.S. drone, has repeatedly tried to conduct attacks against Israel from Syria. And of course, that what to my mind was a game-changing attack back in September, launching cruise missiles and drones, a major attack against a Saudi oil installation. Wow. I mean, unprecedented in its size, its scope, its scale, and just the targeting of it. That really had made a dent, I should say, in the Saudi oil supply for at least a short time. And that was a harbinger of what could come if Iran does that again. So they're increasing their attacks. They're getting more bold, folks, and they're entrenched in Syria. Key point here as we close here on the newscast: they are not going anywhere, at least they say. Israel has conducted hundreds, maybe thousands of strikes against Iranian targets, missile and military infrastructure inside Syria over the past few years. But Iran continues to attempt to entrench itself in Syria, in particular on the Golan Heights. This is right at Israel's northeastern doorstep, folks, and they say they're not going anywhere. Israel, on the other hand, says, this is a red line. We will not allow you to do this. They're telling the Iranian regime, not only in word, but in action, repeatedly striking Iranian targets, and rightfully so, inside Syria, because we've had a few flare-ups over the past few years where Iran is firing missiles, sending drones towards Israel. Thank God Israel has thwarted these attacks. The Iron Dome missile defense system has been a godsend, quite literally, in thwarting these attacks as well. But here's the bottom line, folks. Iran and its proxy Hezbollah, they're entrenching themselves in Syria. They say they're not going anywhere. And they're not there by coincidence. Once again, they know what they're doing. It's part of their grand strategy to surround and destroy Israel. It's common sense, but we live in times today where common sense is not so common, so I kind of have to spell it out for some. But that's what they want to do. Israel says, no way will we allow this. We cannot have a genocidal regime committed to our destruction on our northeastern border, on our doorstep. We already have Hezbollah to the north. We already have Islamic Jihad and Hamas to the south. Now we have further south the Houthis in Yemen. To the east in Iraq, Iran is also gearing up and arming itself to the teeth. Israel says, no way can we allow this. So what do you have? You have a collision course. Iran says it's not going anywhere. They're in Syria to stay, to their minds. And Israel says, no way will we allow you to do this. And it's a red line. And unlike some, the Israelis keep their red lines. So keep an eye on this development in 2020, folks. Iran and Israel, that collision course coming closer and closer. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for all of Israel. Pray for northern Israel, the beautiful, wonderful communities along the Lebanon border, the Syria border that are most directly affected by this. And of course, the communities in southern Israel along the Gaza border that have borne a lot of the brunt of the Hamas rockets and missiles. Pray for these communities. That's number one. Number two, join our team at Christians United for Israel, CUFI. Go to CUFI.org, that's CUFI.org, and join our movement. We are America's largest pro-Israel organization, standing in the gap for Israel for such a time as this. Join us. Subscribe to the Watchman Newscast, of course. And lastly, check out the Watchman TV show every Friday night on TBN, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Sunday nights on the Fox Business Network, 12:30 a.m. Eastern Time. If you like the Watchman Newscast, you're going to love our 30-minute international TV show on TBN and the Fox Business Network. Hey, thanks for joining us. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. Look, God still sits on the throne. I know this is kind of heavy subject matter to talk about during the holiday season, but here at the Watchman Newscast, we think you would rather know than not know. So, the Bible says, my people perish for lack of knowledge. Now you know. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace.